This adult male had a deformed baby boy grow from his armpit. The little monster howled and broke free from its placenta. In the blink of an eye, he transformed into an adult. His legs spread out like a butterfly emerging from a cocoon. Such a disgusting scene made people feel uncomfortable. What on earth happened to the man? Everything began a few years ago. Since their father passed away, Philip had been living in the shadows. One day, he woke up again from a nightmare. He found that his brother Jack was not in the room. Philip went to the barn to find his brother. He saw Jack crouching in front of a calf. The calf was completely naked and deformed. It looked like dead meat from a butcher shop. Jack pulled out a gun, ready to kill it. A sense of death hung over the farm. Not long after, Jack arrived at the Riley & Son auto shop. His younger brother Gray had inherited it. After their father died, the three brothers gradually became distant. Gray was even more unwilling to live at the estate. He had been living at the auto shop. Jack originally didn't want to disturb him, but their brother Philip was in bad shape. He seemed to be possessed by their deceased father. Jack hoped Gray would return to help. Gray saw the footage of Philip. He had the same symptoms as their father before his death. He immediately followed Jack back to the farm. Returning to the farm once more, he recalled many bad memories. Gray's bedroom had been turned into a storage room, so he could only sleep on the sofa tonight. The specifics would be dealt with tomorrow, because Philip was already asleep. At this moment, Gray noticed their father's bedroom, which was still boarded up with wooden planks. He collapsed onto the sofa and fell into a weary sleep. In his dream, he saw his father standing in front of the kitchen, gnawing on a raw chicken. When Gray woke up from the dream, it was already the next morning. He heard sounds coming from the yard. It turned out that Jack was repairing the chicken coop. Gray didn't understand why so much effort was needed for just a few chickens. Jack replied, "You don't know. After father died from that strange illness, the farm had been anything but peaceful. The calves that were born were either stillborn or had strange and deformed appearances, so every pen needed to be reinforced." Gray wanted to persuade Jack and Philip to move away, but they had grown up on the farm. He was unwilling to abandon their life there. Not long after, Philip got up. He looked quite normal now. The two brothers warmly embraced, having not seen each other for a long time. Gray noticed many small scars under Philip's armpits. He was about to examine them closely, but Philip quickly got dressed. He explained that it was just a common allergy. The three brothers safely made it through the day. That night, Gray was resting on the sofa. He was suddenly awakened by a strange noise. He checked his phone, and it was around 2 in the morning. Feeling uneasy, he walked into Philip's room. The light in the room was broken. He turned on a flashlight. Gray found that his brother was not in bed. The strange noise was coming from under the bed. Gray lifted the bedspread. He saw a hen, flapping its wings and squawking loudly. Gray wrapped it in a towel. He intended to take the chicken back to the coop, but he noticed many carcasses in the yard. Snow-white feathers were scattered on the ground, and Philip was crouching in the coop, chewing on a piece of chicken. Gray approached to check on his brother. Unexpectedly, Philip lunged at him and pinned him down, biting Gray and not letting go. He shouted for Jack to help. Gray pushed Philip off of him. Philip tore a piece of flesh from him. Immediately after, the two brothers carried Philip back inside. Gray wanted to call an ambulance. Jack felt that this bizarre behavior would leave the doctors helpless. As they held down the struggling Philip, they discovered that there was something wriggling in his neck. It seemed to be trying to burrow its way out. Jack reached into his brother's mouth, trying to pull out the foreign object. However, it got stuck in the middle and wouldn't budge. Philip sprayed Jack in the face with blood. He vomited up a tongue-like object. It wriggled across the floor like a worm. The two brothers hadn't reacted yet when the tongue worm crawled behind the door and disappeared. They searched the house. At this moment, a few drops of slime fell onto Jack's shoulder. The tongue worm was hiding on the ceiling. Gray handed the broom to his brother. Jack lifted it high to touch the tongue worm. Gray held a bag underneath to catch it. After a bit of struggle, they finally caught the tongue worm. Gray ran to the kitchen. He found a covered box to trap the worm inside. Philip was locked in the room with a chain. When their father fell ill, he had also been locked in the bedroom. His mental state was unstable, and he would attack the children when confused. Philip feared that he might become like his father. He even felt that his father's spirit never left. Philip wanted Gray to unlock the chain. Since the worm had already been expelled, they didn't need to keep him locked up. Gray unlocked his brother so he could clean up the blood. Jack was tidying up the aftermath in the chicken coop. Unattended, Philip came to the kitchen. He opened the box that contained the tongue worm. Gray didn't know about his brother's situation. he thought there were strange noises coming from their father's room. He pried open the boards to take a look inside. There were bloodstains on the old mattress. A Bible belonging to their father was in the cabinet. This old drunkard always hid his liquor in the book. Jack noticed that Gray had pried open the door and warned him not to enter that room. Then, he closed the door again. Jack sat on the sofa watching TV. Gray went to the bathroom to tend to his wound. The wound had become rotten and inflamed. There was a strange circular ring moving in the middle of it. Suddenly, a shadow swept across the living room. Jack on the sofa jumped in surprise. He got up to check their father's bedroom. Painful memories flooded back. It turned out that their father did not die a natural death, but Gray had made the decision to end the family's nightmare. He suffocated his father with a pillow. However, the father did not die at all. Instead, he transformed into a brutal zombie. He pinned Gray down on the bed. Seeing this, Jack tried to stop their father, but was pushed aside. In a critical moment, Philip rushed over and smashed his father to death. Jack was trapped by past nightmares. Suddenly, he lunged at Philip to fight him. Gray saw this and choked Jack unconscious. He planned to take Philip away. Since Jack was unwilling to leave, he could stay there by himself. However, Philip suddenly felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. Gray brought him to the auto shop. The apprentice Cole was hiding in a car smoking. She was startled by the sudden appearance of her boss. At this moment, Philip coughed up a mouthful of black blood. Cole wanted to call an ambulance, but she was stopped by Gray. He asked Cole to take care of Philip for the time being. He ran to the room to check his wound. The circular ring began to swell and writhe. Gray resolutely picked up a pair of scissors. At the same time, Cole saw that Philip's condition was too dire, and she still called for an ambulance. Unexpectedly, he turned to look, and Philip was nowhere to be found. Cole cautiously walked over to check. The next second, Philip stood behind him. Cole immediately ran to find Gray. Gray hurriedly put away the scissors, not wanting Cole to see his wound. At this moment, the house started to shake, as if it were experiencing an earthquake. Objects on the walls flew around chaotically. Gray pulled Cole under the table for cover. After the shaking subsided, Gray remembered that Philip was still outside. He tried to go out, but found the door was locked. At this moment, Philip was standing in the darkness. The locked door suddenly opened. Gray and Cole went out to check. Philip had vanished outside. They could no longer stay in this place. Gray wanted to take Cole and leave. Jack appeared with a gun in hand. Gray explained that he just wanted to protect Philip.
Я здесь, чтобы защитить его. Это же не я сбежал. Ты не оставил нам выбора.
Gray blocked the gun barrel with his head and said, "If you resent me for leaving the farm, then go ahead and pull the trigger." But he wouldn't let Philip return to that nightmare-filled place. Hearing this, Jack lowered his gun. Then, a loud crash echoed from deep within the auto shop. Gray told Cole to hide in the office, and advised her not to come out, no matter what sounds she heard. The two brothers moved toward the source of the sound. During this time, Gray speculated that the strange worm was still parasitizing Philip's body. It wouldn't leave the host until it had absorbed enough strength, and it could likely spread by biting. Gray's wound was the best proof of this. The two soon found Philip hanging from the ceiling like a bat. Gray restrained Philip's body, and Jack used chains to tie down his limbs. Philip gradually calmed down, but there was a terrifying wound on him, with something inside wriggling incessantly. At this moment, Philip suddenly spoke in their father's voice, saying to Gray, "It was you who killed me. The first blow was struck by you." Had Philip truly been possessed by their father? Just then, a knocking sound came from outside the auto shop. Jack peeked through the crack in the door, and discovered it was the police. It must be Cole who called the police. The two hid Philip in the bathroom. Then they went out to deal with the officers. Philip took the opportunity to crawl up. He checked the wound under his armpit. First, a hand emerged from his body. Then, a deformed baby crawled out. It was the first time seeing such a bizarre birth from the armpit. The monster writhed on the ground incessantly. On the other side, two officers wanted to come in to check. To avoid raising suspicion, Gray had no choice but to open the door and let them in. Jack kept his gun low on Cole to prevent the girl from drawing the police's attention. The heavy-set officer noticed Gray blocking the office and grew suspicious. He requested to inspect the office. Jack held onto Cole, hiding behind the cabinet. In a critical moment, another officer suddenly screamed. The heavy officer ran over to investigate the sound, but the bathroom door was locked. At this moment, Jack took the opportunity to knock out the heavy-set officer. He accidentally smashed his own toe. After making sure Jack was okay, he immediately went to the bathroom to check on Philip. Philip was curled up in the corner, and the dead officer lay behind the shower curtain. He dragged Philip out, and the deformed monster slowly approached the isolated Cole. In a critical moment, Gray arrived immediately. He told Cole to find a place to hide first. At this moment, the monster picked up a piece of metal from the ground. It remembered that it had been killed by this object.
Папа. Убьем его. Сейчас же.
As soon as the words left its mouth, a memory surged forth. One afternoon, their father briefly regained his senses. He could feel something devouring his sanity from within. To avoid becoming a true monster, their father pleaded with the three brothers. If you sense that things are spiraling out of control, you must kill me first. The memory ended. Gray steeled himself and fired at the monster. He killed his father once again, but the disaster was not yet over. Gray's wound had planted the seeds of a parasite. He rushed into the office, wanting to end his own life. Jack and the others rushed in and pinned Gray down. They directly extracted the parasite from his wound. Jack grabbed the shapeless monster, took the gun, and shot it dead. The gunfire attracted the police. The four of them got in the car and fled the scene.
Куда мы направляемся?
Просто поезжай, Кол. Не останавливайся.
The film ends here. The curiosity factor is undoubtedly the film's biggest selling point. Therefore, the plot is riddled with holes. The origin of the parasite, and why it takes on the form of the father, as well as the reason for the father's illness, are not clearly explained in the film. We can only infer from the title that it's a kind of demonic syndrome. Those afflicted will be parasitized and lose their sense of self. The entire film maintains the usual standard of low-budget horror. There aren't any major surprises. If you enjoy my channel, please give me a subscription